Cern Basher says he's really, really, really busy. I'm not sure whether it's doing YouTubes for 15 different hosts like myself, or whether it's maybe helping out his clients, but one way or the other, he claims to be very, very busy. Cern, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure, Randy. It's great to be here with you. I enjoy this time every week. Absolutely. So
Me
thank
too.
you.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. And the Tesla stock has been like um, I guess we could coin a term for it. What kind of a term would you think would come to mind when the stock goes up 30 one day and down 15 the next? Is there a term of art?
Normal.
No.
It's pretty boring term, but it's just to be expected. It's just the way these things work.
Oh my goodness. And then, part of my job is to explain why. And so I tried yesterday to do my best. I said sentiment.
That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
More buyers than sellers
Or
is
buyers
the
and sellers.
fail-safe one.
That's Larry's go-to every single
Yeah.
time. And then it comes, but then I say sentiment yesterday. So that should mean that if it's sentiment, that it would not go down 5 times as much as the NASDAQ today.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah.
the market in the short term is a very confounding beast. Yeah.
Well, we're going to earnings, of course, and we're going into a change in the presidency, in case you
Mm.
haven't noticed. The
Yeah, the Canadian president is resigning.
yes, it's
I know it's a prime minister. I know. I'm aware of
prime,
that. I'm from Canada.
yeah, PM, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was trying to remember the actual right. See, people always claim that we Americans don't know much about Canada. I probably know more than the average American, but I couldn't remember whether he was a potentate or a prime minister or what he was. I had to look it up.
I think he fancied himself as a potentate. Yeah. Yeah.
He is Canada's answer to California's Governor Newsom. They remind me of each other in so many ways.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I won't step on that landmine.
so
Yeah. So how are things going, Randy, with the fire situation?
the fire situation. Well, I hear that there's kind of getting it under control. The winds are much less today as I'm looking out my window.
Hmm.
That's the key when the winds stop. Now, if you get rain, that's even cooler.
That would be good.
But when the winds die down, then they can get in there with lots and lots of aircraft and really start to do some damage to the fires. So we'll see how long it takes them to extinguish it. But I think they're at this point not really dealing with structures anymore. It's off into the chaparral.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, crazy times. I hope everybody stays safe out there. Hope
Yeah.
the air quality isn't too bad either.
Yes, well, as long as you're mentioning it, it gives me an opportunity to pitch last night's video with Brian Wang. I
Hmm.
do believe that Brian and I have put together the most comprehensive analysis, and people can look at it and tell me I'm wrong, but I really think we've covered from the very early stages of what you do to harden your house, what communities can do to harden the entire community, all the way through what you do when the fire is going in terms of equipment because there's all kinds of new ideas and new approaches in terms of equipment. But yeah,
And the
yeah. So
amazing thing is without too much cost as well, pretty cost-effective
some of,
solutions.
some of the stuff is really inexpensive. Like, why wouldn't every single person who lives in a fire zone like that, and we know where those fire zones are.
Yeah.
That was kind of one of the first things I had to think about was okay, yes, the insurance company has already told you if you're in that zone.
Right.
So if you're in a fire zone, why would you still have a pea shooter of a garden hose
Yeah.
rather than a gun, a Gatling gun of a 1.5 inch hose like the fire department uses, and then hook that up to a sump pump that you can drop into a swimming pool, or maybe you go to the additional expense of putting together some kind of a container that would
Hmm.
hold maybe 250 or 500 gallons. That would probably be enough. You can sink that in your lawn. I don't think it would be way less than a what do you call it, a cistern, not a cistern, what do they call those things people have in their backyard instead of sewage.
Oh,
Yeah.
now you've made me lost my,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. The
Anyway, so
septic tank, septic
yeah,
field.
be way less expensive than putting in a
Yep.
septic tank. And now you've got that facility that can give you that power that you need.
Hmm.
And now you're not talking about some poor dad up on the roof trying to spray down the roof with a little.
Garden hose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's all I got to say about the fires. So, what did you learn since I've met you, seen you last, that you'd like to pass on to the folks?
I've learned a few things and we'll share a few slides today. Let's start with my favorite topic, and you can guess what that is.
Cybertruck.
Cybertrucks. I always have to include some beautiful photos of Cybertrucks because they are
Yes.
just so beautiful. I'm one of those, crazy people out there that thinks Cybertrucks is a beautiful piece of machinery.
Right, right.
Not everybody agrees with me, but this one I thought was particularly beautiful with its wrap. We've got a rocket ship on a tower over here.
Yeah,
We've got this, launch trajectory. This probably is Mars here? This looks pretty cool.
yeah.
And to add, an element to this, they've parked this right next to a rocket ship.
Oh, there you go.
You know, um, no idea whose rocket ship this is.
Yeah.
Perhaps you might know, Randy.
I've heard there's some guy down in Texas plays with his toy rockets.
Yeah, yeah. And then here's the side of the Cybertruck with its painted
Yeah.
version of the solar system, I guess there. Anyway, yes. So anyway, today I understand is the test flight of Starship 7.
Yeah. Yeah. It's supposed to be going off.
Yep, not too far from now. And this is kind of a cool image here where they transported it, I guess, in the night or early one morning.
Very,
Um,
very cool image.
I would be worried about this thing toppling over, but I guess they've got that figured out. Um, but yeah, it sure seems a top-heavy load for the vehicles that are carrying it.
Yeah, yeah, and it really gives it helps you get some kind of an idea of how big it really is, because those trucks,
It's
those are pretty big trucks.
it's a colossal thing. The idea of transporting this on a road where there's
Yeah,
other vehicles and people is just insane to me, but they do it all the time. So we may have talked about this before, but this is a pretty cool chart. I think Steve 𝐓𝐿𝐼𝐼 is the one that's put this together, or he certainly posted it. I guess it came from Visual Capitalist, um, showing the cost of launch mass into low Earth orbit.
right.
The red line was the trajectory that we were on, which is a cost decline over time.
Mhm.
But SpaceX has put us on the green line.
Right.
It's a log scale, so an equal distance change is an equal percentage change in the
Mhm.
chart.
Mm.
So you can see, Falcon 9 got us to levels that were unattainable with previous rockets. And with Starship, there it's an estimate get us down to about $200 per kilogram
Right.
to get mass into space.
Right.
And this would be, a factor of 10 or so improvement
Yes.
over where we are now. So,
The,
so
the thing, you've probably heard this already. I'm sure you have, but I'm just going to repeat it again because it just blows my mind. Elon has said that on point to point, once this is set up, if we had Los Angeles and New York, he would be able to deliver your UPS kilogram for less than UPS does with 5-day transportation in 45 minutes.
it's amazing. Now, we do have the slight issue of, do you want these rockets going off, in your backyard, right? Like they do make a bit of a roar.
Yes, yes,
So it'll be interesting to see, sort of where we end up launching them, particularly if it's point to point on Earth.
yes,
Where does that make sense?
yes. I think out in the ocean where there is one would be the first most likely.
Yeah, yeah, and that has its own challenges, but I'm sure they'll sort that out at some point. But this, the consequences of this green line are actually pretty profound,
Yes,
because when you decrease the cost of something by this much, it allows whole new opportunities and industries to blossom.
right.
And space is kind of this untapped potential, but if we can get mass into space this cheaply, then suddenly manufacturing in space becomes a possibility. And that has no limits at all in terms of what's possible there over the long term.
Sure.
There are a lot of things I understand that it would be preferred to manufacture them in space.
Hmm. Because of
Um,
weightlessness, because of what? Do you know?
yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Certainly, some pharmaceuticals, for example, that would be very helpful.
I see.
So, haven't fully researched that yet, but it's my understanding that there's a lot of opportunities there that once they get the launch cost down, it opens that up.
I wonder how bicycle water bottles going to. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could be interesting, something for you to think about. Anyway, here's another photo of Starship being transported. Again, this one does a really good job of showing how big it is.
Right.
And I'm sure the photographer here is still some distance away from it, so it's still, a lot bigger than it appears even in this photo.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, coming back, well, to here first, this is the progression of the Raptor engines
Yes.
from 1, 2, and 3. And of course, Randy, as you know, the best engine is no engine. So Raptor 4 is nothing.
So another video that Brian and Wang and I are working on is on nuclear. And one of the things we talk about on this is that if you use a nuclear engine, it would be a fraction of the size
Yeah.
of these engines and would go a lot further and stay up a lot longer. So yeah, it's not totally a joke.
Right. Yeah. Tipping my hat here to Jan of the EV universe for putting this out there. That was pretty good.
And also there's another joke in this, which is going around, another meme going around, which is this is also the progression of government under Musk.
There you go.
So yeah, yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's great. Finally, we're back on the beach here again with a number of Cybertrucks this time. Beautiful sight with Starship 7 in the background. But by the way, the Starship we were showing in those images, one of them I think is Starship 8.
Ah,
So sign of things to come. Anyway, we wish
12
the
this year?
mission well later on
12
today.
this year? 12 launches this year. Is that what I
I
remember?
don't know the number. I thought I heard a number higher than that, but perhaps you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it should be an exciting year.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of Cybertrucks, I thought that Lewis here had a nice post. He said the car I learned to drive on had 4 speeds and 37 horsepower. The vehicle I have now has 1 speed and 600 horsepower and drives itself. Most of the progress has been in the last few years. Tesla are a clear step change. Lewis was one of the first people that I took my Cybertruck to when I got it to show somebody. I went over to his house and showed him. So he's got one of his own now.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Yep. So that was a nice post from him.
Very, very cool.
All right, we're back to some cartoons, Randy, as transition points. We've got a couple of guys looking skyward at Uncle Sam, who's saying, "Inflation? What about inflation?" As he's getting carried away by a balloon of some sort.
Right.
Yeah. I guess it's not Uncle Sam, it's the Fed. I guess there's a distinction there.
Yes, the Fed is like, what are you even talking about? Yeah, okay, I get it. Okay. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Transition then to superchargers.
Okay.
We have a little bit of a mystery to solve here, Randy. Maybe you can help me figure this out. So, at the end of the year, I think it was December 31st, if I'm not mistaken, the Tesla charging account on X said, Happy New Year. In 2024, we launched superchargers in 3 new countries. They installed 11,500 plus new supercharger stalls opened, which was 19% year-over-year growth, for a total of 67,000 plus superchargers worldwide. Remember that number, please, 67,000.
I can do it. I can do it.
Okay. All right. And then they had some images of some of the various superchargers around the world with different country flags and so on them. It's pretty cool. All right. Again, don't lose sight of the 67,000 number. Just hold that in your mind.
Right.
This is a chart that I put together on a quarterly basis. It kind of tracks the annualized fleet fuel savings, assuming a certain cost per gallon.
Hmm.
and the number of gallons saved. And so the fleet now is up to about $3 billion a year of fuel saved
Hmm.
worldwide. And assuming 3.15 a gallon, that's, US prices in other parts of the world will be far higher than that.
Right.
It's about a $10 billion annualized savings on fuel cost.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, of course, it's not complete savings because Tesla owners have to charge their vehicle, but just in terms of amount of money spent on fuel, it's at least $10 billion less a year.
Right. Mhm.
Now, pardon the pun, but this is a bit of a drop in the bucket still for, oil and gas companies, but you can see the progression here. It's moving up fast. Okay, back to our mystery.
Okay.
On January 6th, the same Tesla account,
Yeah.
Tesla Charging on X, said this. In Q4, we opened 3,600 Supercharger stalls, 19% year-over-year growth. That's the same number.
Mhm.
Okay. So when I run the numbers and show how many supercharging stalls there is at the end of the quarter, I get 66,021.
Mhm.
Now they said 3,600 plus, so it's more
Ah,
than just the even
okay.
number, but still I have 1,000
Missing.
missing.
Yeah.
Where are the extra 1,000 superchargers, Randy? Where did they come from?
Where do they come from, or where they going, or
I
what
don't
happened?
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, do they exist?
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. So these were installed. Both cases they were talking about installed, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
In the first post, they say that they have 67,000 plus,
Yeah.
and my numbers would be 66,000 plus.
Yes.
So there's 1,000 supercharger discrepancy.
Hmm. I
So
don't.
we may find out when they report their
Okay.
earnings next week. Oh, sorry, in a couple of weeks. It would be next week if it wasn't for the inauguration, but it's delayed a
Yes.
week.
Yes.
And by the way, here's from the quarterly report at the end of Q3, 62,421. So they'll give us a specific number at the end of Q4.
Oh, I see. I see.
So I'll be able to true up my numbers and make sure I've got the right data. But my charts are based on these numbers here.
I see. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you add the 3,600 to that, you're at 66.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So that's a mystery. It's a
That's a
1,000
mystery.
supercharger
That,
mystery.
that is a mystery.
I was hoping that you would be able to solve it for us.
I
Here's how
have
this
not.
looks.
Yeah. It doesn't just jump right out at me. No.
Yeah. Here's how this looks in terms of quarterly growth, and it's pretty astonishing.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in here, they fired the entire supercharging team, so it's
Right.
a mystery to me how they're able to build any of these. At
It's,
least
it's,
that was what was reported.
they've hired many back.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's one good technique is to fire everybody and then hire them all back.
Or hire some of them back.
Some of them. Yeah. This was a strong quarter. You can certainly see fourth quarters typically are pretty big quarters as far as supercharging growth. At least it has been in the last 3 years.
Hmm.
2020 was a big one as well. So I'll be curious to see if that extra 1,000 shows up
Goes
or
up.
if the 66,000 is in fact the right number. It could easily be a typo, I suppose, in the on the X post.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you can't solve that mystery, then we better move on. All right. What I do here is track the number of vehicles delivered on a cumulative basis versus the total supercharging stalls,
Hmm.
just to see on a fleet-wide basis worldwide, how many vehicles are there for an average charger?
Right.
And we're up now over 100, about 110 vehicles per charger.
Okay.
Now, a couple things worth mentioning with this is one, most people charge their vehicle at home
Yep.
the majority of the time. So the fact that this is increasing isn't necessarily, a bad thing. Um, Also, we should mention now that as the supercharging opens up to other EV makers, it sort of makes this measurement, I guess, a little bit less useful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I also track this just on a quarterly basis, just to see if there's anything significant. And certainly the vehicles delivered last quarter versus the number of supercharger stalls is kind of in line with where they've been. So
Yeah,
nothing really too out of the ordinary here.
I think about a year ago when I was doing an analysis, and maybe it was the same time Larry was doing an analysis of the supercharger stalls and how to figure out what they might bring in terms of profit. I think I came up with, I don't remember if Larry came up with the same number, is that the 100 number seemed about right to us going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where this evens out at.
Right.
Certainly on a quarterly basis. Here's the 100 line here.
Yeah.
And so you would say really for the last 3 years, they've been at or above that every
Mhm.
quarter.
Mhm.
So, they've probably learned to optimize the system a little better in recent years than they did in the past.
Right.
Um,
And while they might use a number like that as kind of a shoot for number, in reality, they've got such good data
yeah.
in terms of knowing where they need to put them. So it's like,
Yeah, and of course that's an average. There are certainly some areas where you need a lot more than that.
right.
And some areas like in the middle of Wyoming where you need a lot less.
I saw a shocking thing the other day, Cern, uh where there was it was so shocking that now I can't remember what I was going to say. I don't know.
Well, Randy, if it was so shocking, you might be thinking about this.
No, that well, I remember seeing that.
Do not touch. This will kill you and hurt the entire time you are dying.
I know what it was though, sir. Let me
All
say
right.
it before I forget it again.
Sorry, I couldn't miss the transition here though, Randy. I couldn't miss the opportunity.
Is that almost all the cars in the United States, at least, that are owned, almost all the Teslas that are owned right now are by homeowners. That
Yeah.
the renting population, I forget what it was, like 98% or some
Mm,
crazy number, that renters are not buying the cars for the obvious reason. But okay,
right.
now let's get back to the shocking situation.
Well, I already covered it. You gave me
Oh,
the
you did?
perfect
Oh, I
answer.
missed it. Okay.
Yeah, as if it's not enough to die from electric shock, you have to be warned that it's going to hurt
Yeah.
the entire time that you're dying.
Uh,
Um, yeah,
uh,
I don't know if this is on every supercharger. I'm going to have to take a look a little closer
right.
now to see if that's the case or if this particular one. Yeah, that's good. Okay, Randy, we have half empty, half full, and half baked. And for those people that aren't watching the screen, the half empty refers to the bear.
Yes.
The half full is the bull, and half baked is a guy wearing a CNBC shirt.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. CNBC,
Okay.
these old stream media are so much fun to pick on.
Yes. Yeah, they're easy targets, aren't they? They
Yeah.
bring it upon themselves. Yeah. All right. Not to hijack this show, but I just wanted to cover a couple of MicroStrategy Bitcoin items. And just kind of, since we've talked about this before,
Sure.
just kind of, share some news as it comes out. So it's interesting that they continue to grow the number of Bitcoin they hold.
Right.
They're now up to a nice even round number of 450,000. And one thing, this is, by the way, the growth in the Bitcoin owned per share as measured in Satoshis,
Okay.
right? So either way, it's measured basically the number of Bitcoin per share. So in 2020, when they first started, it was 56,000 sats per share, and now we're up to about 160,000, almost 160.
Hmm.
So if you own the stock over this time period without putting any more money into MicroStrategy, the number of Bitcoin per share has increased.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the main message.
Right.
Um, here's the latest announcement where they invested 243 million, $95,000 a coin. And they're talking about this idea of Bitcoin yield, right? So the Bitcoin yield so far this year is 0.32%. And we'll come back to that in just a second. But one thing that's kind of an interesting development now is every 7 days, MicroStrategy has been buying Bitcoin.
Hmm.
It's become sort of like regular clockwork every week, buying Bitcoin. So we'll see how long that trend lasts. If
Yeah.
this is now the new cadence, then we can expect an announcement every single week.
Hmm.
Okay. Here's the number of Bitcoin that they purchased each time they've purchased it. It highly fluctuates depending on what they've been doing and how they've raised capital.
Mhm.
Here's the cumulative Bitcoin holdings over time, which we saw earlier. And here's the cumulative average cost. So as they're buying more, as prices are going higher,
Sure.
it's also bringing up their cost.
Right.
And it's just over 60,000 per coin right now.
Mm.
Here's the difference between how much they've invested in the green versus how much it's worth at the last purchase in the white line. And the difference between those two measures is this chart in terms of their cumulative gains. So they're sitting on about a $15 billion or so profit right now.
Right.
Okay. All right. And then here's this concept of Bitcoin yield. Last year, if you were a shareholder in MicroStrategy from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, your Bitcoin per share grew 74%. And that's taking into account any dilution from new share issuances.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so far this year, it's 0.3. If you annualize the 0.3, you get to about 10%. So we'll see what it ends up being. Their target, I think, is in that range, but certainly last year was a phenomenal year in terms of how many Bitcoin they were able to acquire
Right.
on a per share basis. Yeah. All right. Let's finish this slide presentation off with some cartoons. I think we've been lacking some cartoons lately, so let's make up for it today. Here is a bull bringing his crystal ball to the fortune teller. Unfortunately, it's not a crystal ball. So the fortune teller, I think she's figuring it out, but she's not quite sure what this is.
Yeah.
All right. It's always a good topic. And then here is the bulls with the bear outside the window.
Mm-hmm.
That would be pretty scary, I think, for anybody. And then these guys, it stopped going up. What do you think that means? So say the bulls.
Yes.
As the object above them is getting larger and larger.
Yes. Yes.
And then finally, I think fitting for next week with the inauguration, we have Janet Yellen sitting behind a desk, and her name on her desk is crossed out, and it says "Leaving."
Leaving instead of yelling.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So with that brings us an end to the prepared remarks.
Well, and it's very interesting that you end in kind of that space because we have had 2 years in a row with 20+% S&P increases.
Mm.
And that doesn't happen. A third year of anything like 20% would be not the first time in history, but apparently one of the very, very few times in history that you get 3 years in a row of that kind of return.
Right.
A 5 or 10 or whatever percent return, I think you've even shown maybe wouldn't be that crazy.
Yep.
So I think I talked about this a little bit with Jeff last night. I think maybe you can straighten me out, but as I look at the Trump group coming in, and I think the Treasury Secretary designate, I'm going to forget his name again. I've written it down twice today, and I still can't remember it. Yeah, you can't either, huh? Okay.
No.
All right. Anyway, Scott something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
we're both having trouble finding names today.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's why I always write them down because I was never any good at names, even when I was young. Okay, so as he was describing to the people that were interviewing him today for his job, what he is expecting to happen in the next year, it was pretty much, I think, what we're all expecting, pretty much what Trump has laid out as to what's going on. But he did try to smooth out some of the edges, like talking about tariffs. He said, look, tariffs, it's going to be modified. The impact on pricing at retail is going to be modified by all kinds of things, including currency fluctuations, governments deciding to get involved in modifying this. And I've talked about this ad infinitum. But what I do think that would be fair to say, and again, correct me if you think I'm completely nuts, this is going to be, in my memory, one of the most chaotic change situations in terms of the economy ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I go back and I just can't think. I mean, and he was going through all the changes. We got the extension of the tax thing. Now, that wouldn't be chaotic, but I know they're going to add to it. So they're going to lower corporate tax rates again if they can get it through Congress.
So there's a positive for the market.
Could be a very big positive for the market. We've got tariffs, which everybody's so afraid of. Every survey that comes out of business people, they say, "Oh, we're very optimistic about the future," except for the tariffs.
Well, let's double click on that for a second, Randy.
Okay, all right.
That's an expression I've heard people use, which sounds a little weird, but let's do that.
Yeah.
So, have you noticed what's been happening in China lately?
They're in trouble.
Yeah, where are Chinese interest rates?
In the toilet.
Yeah, so they have a deflationary problem right now.
Right.
So let's say one of your larger trading partners raises tariffs on you. What do you think you would do?
Well, one of the things is you could affect your currency.
Yeah, or you would lower the prices of your products in order to be able to continue to compete.
Right.
So right there, right, even before the goods hit our shores,
right.
China is likely to lower prices. Now, they could say, okay, fine, we don't care about selling this to you. You know, that doesn't seem logical to me. They do care.
Yes.
They have an economy to repair and people to worry about.
Right.
Right. They can't just, do really anything they want. So I am not convinced that in this particular situation, the tariffs are going to be inflationary at all.
Right.
Actually, if anything, China is going to be exporting deflation to the United States. That's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I've gone into it in great detail because I've been in import-export my entire adult life.
Yeah.
And still am. I'm still importing products from China for sale on Amazon. And so I am, really, really aware of these kinds of fluctuations. And you can't just walk into the buyer at Target and say, I'm raising your price 10% because I got a tariff.
Yeah.
The buyer at Target goes, whatever. I got Joe over here. He's got it for only a 5% increase, or he's got it for the same price as he had it last year, and he'll guarantee it for the next 12 months.
Right.
I've heard those words come out of buyers' mouths.
Yeah.
So it isn't something that you just willy-nilly because there's a price increase for any reason. It could be currency fluctuation. It could be because container rates have gone up. It could be because the cost of the raw material has gone crazy, like we've seen with so many things over our time with watching Tesla. The buyer doesn't care. He really, really doesn't care. He just wants to know, what does your product cost? And can I buy the same darn thing from somebody else cheaper?
Right.
and that goes all the way down the chain, all the way down the supply chain. So no, it's not as simple as raising tariffs will raise the price of goods on the shelf.
So let's say then that we suggest or can agree that tariffs may be neutral.
Okay.
Or maybe slightly negative at worst.
Right.
Right. What else then could affect the economy?
So then the second thing that people are saying in the surveys is immigration worries them because we won't have this pool of labor coming into the country. And as I've pointed out a couple of times this week, we might have a pool of labor that's leaving. If Trump is successful, we might have net out migration as opposed to net immigration in terms of the legal, at least the illegal rather, as opposed to the legal will probably stay the same or go up. But the illegal is likely to be either zero or possibly even negative. And so that would have various impacts.
So a tighter labor market, all things being equal, that would be a negative.
So it would loosen the labor market. I'm sorry, you're right, tighten labor market. Yes. Yeah. So that could cause an increase in labor costs.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is a portion of companies' costs, not all, but it's a significant portion.
Important, yes.
The nice thing about that from a Tesla perspective is that makes the appeal of humanoid robots that much more attractive at some point.
Definitely.
Right. The tighter things are.
Yes.
So careful what you wish for there. How quickly do you want your job replaced? Right. Yeah.
At the same time, it's going to decrease rents and decrease the cost of products because you don't have as much demand for rents or for certain categories of products. So, I mean, and we could probably figure out way more things like that if we just kept going through it. But it is, and again, we could go down the list of all of the things that are being proposed because there's a lot being proposed. I've kept on coming back to housing, and I don't know, I can't remember that you and I have done anything on housing. Has been in, people don't think about it, but the housing building market has been in recession now, I want to say since 2008.
Off and on, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but pretty much I would say when you say so, of course, a recession would mean that it's less than the prior year. So I guess that would be incorrect of me to say. But
Yeah.
let's just say that the normal rate of building homes in order to create enough to keep prices in balance has not happened since 2007,
Right.
since
Yeah.
the Great Recession. And I do a lot in real estate. So I mean, not in terms of buying and selling, but I have a lot of clientele in that space. So we continue to have this shortage because they're not building enough houses. And the only thing that I've heard, I mean, Kamala had a couple of ideas on what she was going to do. Trump either borrowed one or separately had the idea of opening up some land in federal spaces that might be valuable in terms of where people would want to move. So it's
Mhm.
not okay to just open it up anywhere.
Right.
It's going to have to be someplace that people want to go. But there is federal land in places that people want to go. There's probably federal land available to build houses right next to Pacific Palisades.
Mm.
There's a lot of, you
Yeah.
know, a lot of space there around the Palisades that's completely not covered with anything but trees and chaparral. So anyway, do you have any thoughts with regard to how to solve the housing problem?
Well, that's a complex topic, isn't it?
I,
Um,
I just thought I threw it out there.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
surprise you with it.
Right. I mean, there's so many different issues that need to be addressed, and I think it takes time. And of course, with what's happening in the LA region, you're going to be exacerbated in like this issue regionally there. Like that's going to be a massive challenge to get the people, the resources in place, the permitting in place, the financing in place, right?
Right.
All the work, all the design and all the plans that need to be put together to rebuild, it's just colossal
Huge.
on top of an already challenging situation.
Right. Yeah. And they're saying that San Francisco area is already worried that they're going to be pulling people from San Francisco,
Yeah.
to do this planning and this design and everything, and that's going to hurt their opportunity
Yeah.
to grow neighborhoods. So yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal thing. Yeah. So there's a continuing problem with no clear-cut solution. And it's not going to be, I keep saying, I don't think that the mortgages at 6 or 7% are going to slow it down any more this year than it did last year. But we might be getting to a place where there is an affordability issue.
Yeah.
And even though they really need the place and they really want the place and they really, and they could even, maybe get the mortgage, it's just too much.
It's interesting because we've all anchored on mortgages at, 3 or 4%.
Right. Yes.
And now at 6 or 7, it suddenly seems crazy high, but in reality, it's pretty darn good.
That's the average. 6% is the average over the
Yeah,
last 120 years. Yeah.
yeah,
So it's not that high.
yeah.
But
But
it's high.
the change from where we were is significant.
And also you have these high prices.
Yeah,
So normally you say, oh, if the mortgage rate goes up, then the price of the homes go down in order to match affordability.
yeah.
But we haven't seen the price of the housing going down. It's been going up 6% a year, 6% a year.
Because there's a shortage of houses.
There's a shortage of houses.
Yeah. So
And
unless you solve the building problem, that's not going to be fixed.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And you also have a big shortage because I don't know about you, but I have 3 homes and they're all at 3%. Well, I'm not going to sell any of those homes.
Right.
Not certainly not unless I can turn around and get a mortgage at 3 or 3.5%.
Right. Yeah.
So
There's a lot of people that are sort of, I'm not sure what the word is, but they're sort of stuck in those houses and in those investments. They'd be crazy to let them go. Yeah.
right, right. Okay, so we didn't solve that problem. Got any other problems you'd like to solve? Okay, I really do want to know though. I know that you don't do short-term prognostication, but we have an earnings call coming up next week. How do you feel about the earnings call?
Mixed.
Mixed.
I'm excited about energy.
Mhm.
That's clear. That business is, firing on all batteries. Um, Autos, I think, is mixed. I think we'll have some, some cost of goods sold declines. That's great. I think we'll have some pricing pressure that may be greater than the cost of goods declines. That could affect margins. The lower number of vehicles sold versus expectations could affect margins. From a cash flow perspective, the fact they sold more vehicles than they produced, that's a positive. So it's mixed. Now, the reality is, in my mind, that neither autos or energy really matters for the long-term valuation of Tesla. Don't get me wrong, autos and energy are important,
Right.
but more as a bridge to fund autonomy, whether it's autonomous vehicles, autonomous robots, right? That's what I'm interested in. The comments, I think, on the call are going to be critical, right? That's what I'll be listening for more so than digging into the numbers. I mean, of course, I'll dig into the numbers, but it's the outlook and so on that's more important, in my opinion. With a stock that's trading at about 100 times earnings, clearly that's going to be important. And again, most important is the humanoid robots.
Yeah.
Right. I care about the Robotaxi. I care about Cybercab. It's going to be a great business. But what is going to carry Tesla to the numbers that you and I have talked about is progress on humanoid robots. So the more they share about that, that's where my interest is. I doubt that we're going to hear too much about that on this call.
Right.
That's probably a second half of the year discussion.
Right.
I find it interesting and also frustrating that the humanoid robot companies in general are sharing fewer videos than they used to.
I think you put one up today or yesterday on the one in China. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was Unitree, I believe.
Yes, Unitree.
Right, and they showed a robot that was walking very smoothly, or smoother than we've seen, I think, from most humanoids.
Yes, yes.
Now, the interesting thing about that is, why the Chinese focused on movement so much. And I've heard a number of sort of speculations as to why that's important, but the reality is humans do most of their work with their hands. So you want to focus on the hands in terms of its functionality. I agree with that. But I think the smoothness of operation is important for two reasons. One is potentially on training side. If you have a robot that's like this, the quality of the data that the robot's collecting probably isn't as good as a robot that is smooth. Right? Think of the video like from the Blair Witch Project, right? It's all over the place. It's pretty hard to use that for any training. The second thing too, though, and maybe more important, is from a human acceptance standpoint. Think about if you go anywhere and there's somebody next to you that's all crazy, you don't want to be anywhere near them.
Right.
You don't feel safe around them. You don't know if their hand's going to hit you in the face.
Yeah.
Same thing with a humanoid robot. The more calm and smooth and quiet and careful and gentle it appears to be in its movements, the more comfortable you are going to be around it, and the more accepting you are going to be in having it in your presence. So that's where I think some of the benefits from these Chinese makers focusing on the movement of the bot and its smooth, fluid walking style and that kind of thing. Are they doing this at the expense of focusing on the development of the hands? That's a good question. And if they are, why?
So first of all, I agree with you 100%. I agree. I think that's exactly why the smoothness matters. But on the hands, people have made note that a lot of the jobs that could be done don't need special hands. They just really don't.
True.
So some people have suggested, and I think they might be right, that what Elon is aiming for is really, really, a do everything bot, just really super capable from day one, which makes sense. It's it sounds like kind of the direction that Elon would go, and so smooth as well as dexterous as well as great hands, just really able to do a massive numbers of tasks from day one.
Agreed. And if you think about what a robot is worth, the more capable it is, the more you could charge for it either on a per hour basis or just the purchase price.
Right.
right? So it makes sense to develop the most capable bot that you can do because the bot that can do $40 an hour work,
Mhm.
yeah, it could also do $5 an hour work if you want it to, if it needed to, right? It can also pick up a box.
Yes,
But the bot that's only been developed to do $5 an hour work, that's a ceiling for it.
right,
Now, for the Chinese manufacturers, maybe that's enough for now. They've got the human labor. Maybe they don't need help
right,
beyond a certain level.
right.
And who knows what the instructions are from the government, right? They may say, these are the capabilities you need to meet, and we'll
Exactly,
fund you if you get to this point.
exactly.
And maybe one of the capabilities is a robot that walks in a certain way and a certain speed,
Hmm.
right? And so that's what they've been focused on. So it may be an artificial thing that they're targeting,
Right.
right? And then when they hit that metric and they get their funding, then maybe then they can go on and develop further from there. I'm not sure about that. I don't know about that
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure, but that's my guess as to maybe what's happening there.
Well, CERN, since I know you're very, very involved in this part of the business, and I threw this out to Larry the other day. Let me throw it out to you because I didn't like Larry's answer at all. I'm sorry, Larry.
And I didn't hear it, so I'm not going to
All
be
right.
burdened by it.
All right. Okay. So it all of a sudden occurred to me that we've laughed a little bit about having Optimus be able to drive a car
Yeah,
because why would we need that? We're going to have autonomous cars.
right.
And yet it occurred to me that for the next 15 years, there's going to be lots of cars that are not going to be autonomous.
Yeah.
So an Optimus who could drive would potentially be a very, very big deal,
Mm.
but not just cars, tractors,
Forklifts.
there's forklifts, just go,
Yeah.
big trucks, whatever. There's so many things that get driven that are using up very expensive labor, and in some cases, has to be labor that has to be trained. That you could and kind of where the idea came was because DARPA is developing non-humanoid robots right now to be able to fly and drive any military equipment.
Mm.
Put them in the chair, and they
Yep.
can fly the plane. They can drive the equipment.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of where the idea first crystallized in my mind that having a humanoid that could not only, make your bicycle water bottles, but could also drive your forklift, not a
Yeah.
bad thing.
I mean, in the long run, it's cheaper to have those things just become autonomous
Right.
themselves.
Right.
But you're talking about this transition period where we've got existing equipment out there,
Yeah.
right? And no truck drivers or farm tractor drivers available to drive it.
Right.
Have a humanoid bot operate it. Sure, why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Now,
I'm
is that a
gonna have
focus for Tesla to develop that? I don't know.
no, I don't know. I don't
I
either.
I
And
doubt it.
well, the TAM is, as Elon has said, the TAM is so massive that it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. I've come up with my suggestions of where I thought it would be smart for them to be shooting for initially. Everybody's looking at this manufacturing bot. Okay, great. I think that's a very big one. But there are in the in and out down the street from here, they have 100 employees.
Yeah.
For people who don't know what In and Out is, it's our hamburger stand here in the Western region. You guys have five guys, five men, five something in Florida. What's
Five
going on?
guys. Yep.
Five guys. Yeah. Those are good hamburgers too. I had those when I was in Miami. Okay. So, but anyway, they have 4 shifts.
Yeah.
So some of the bigger ones my son worked at, they have 100 employees for one location.
Wow.
Okay. You can replace a lot of that. Okay,
Yeah.
now you talk about grocery stores, major grocery stores, Home Depot, etc. Those also have 4 shifts. They are open 24/7. They are loading shelves and unloading trucks all night long,
Yeah.
cleaning up, preparing for the next day. So they have quite a number of employees there all day long. So there's things like that probably are more important than drivers in the beginning. Maybe, I don't know, but there's so much of it
Yeah.
that Tesla, I don't think, has to worry as long as the bot has really a huge number of capabilities.
Their job, in my opinion, is to make the bot as capable as possible, and the most important uses will float to the top.
Right, right. The
Right.
people,
It'll be deployed where it needs to be deployed.
people will bid for them. That's my
Yeah.
thinking, is it
Yeah.
should be a bidding war. I don't know how some of these Chinese ones are offering their bots at 16,000 or 40,000 or 50,000. Why isn't it a bidding war? It should be a bidding war.
Yeah. Well, those bots are pretty simple, and in many cases, you have to use a video game controller to control them. They're not autonomous
Well,
at this
those,
point, but yeah, but that will change.
yes,
From Tesla's perspective, where your mission is to accelerate sustainable energy,
right.
you're not really that interested in putting a bot behind a diesel-powered vehicle, right? Ideally, you want to get those things off the road.
Right, right.
But there may be other bot makers that seize that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And that's fine for a transition. Or maybe the value is so great where you've got a mine and there's no drivers, and the mine operator says, Tesla, I'll pay you $1 million for robots to come drive my trucks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And in that case, why not?
Yeah. All right, CERN. Well, I am glad that I had somebody to agree with me. I mean, Larry, I know that's your job. Your job is to try to make sure that I am not completely off my rocker with my crazy ideas.
Well, let me just say that I think that Larry is right, but I agree with you. How's that? How's that for being, political?
Agreeable. You're such an agreeable guy. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
All
That's
right.
my New Zealand and Canadian nature coming out, Randy.
That's right. I didn't know if do New Zealanders have that same reputation too? I know Canadians certainly do.
Well, Canadians are the sorry A
Nice.
type.
Then you're right. Yeah.
New Zealanders, unless you're playing them in rugby or racing them in a sailing yacht,
Yes.
they're pretty agreeable people.
Pretty agreeable also. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Listen, I want to take a minute to remind people. We talked a little while ago about that video I did with Brian Wang about the fires. I'll put that card right up here. And so other than that, CERN, parting shots, parting ideas, parting thoughts, parting wisdom.
There's so much, Randy. It would take hours for parting wisdom. But no, I'm just excited today about the launch of Starship 7. Let's hope that goes well and we have an exciting catch. And I look forward to seeing you in the same time, same place next week.
Okay, and there's going to be another launch, and that's on Monday. I'm looking forward to that launch even more than I am Starship 7. So with that said, thank you all. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks, Randy.